What if everything we think we know about ancient civilizations is only half the story? Picture standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, its massive stones fitting together so perfectly that not even a razor blade could slide between them, thousands of years before modern engineering tools existed. Or consider the Antikythera Mechanism, a complex bronze device discovered in a shipwreck, its intricate gears revealing an ancient understanding of astronomy that rivals today's technology. These aren't just isolated curiosities, they're glimpses into a world where innovation flourished in ways that still leave us breathless. The truth is, our ancestors were far more advanced than history books often give them credit for. They didn't just build structures, they engineered marvels that defied their time. They didn't just practice medicine, they pioneered techniques still used in modern surgeries. They didn't just observe the stars, they mapped the cosmos with startling accuracy. And here's the most astonishing part: many of these breakthroughs were achieved without the tools, materials, or scientific frameworks we take for granted today. How did they do it? What secrets have been lost to time? That's exactly what we're about to explore. In this journey through the past, we'll uncover 35 jaw-dropping innovations from ancient civilizations that continue to amaze scientists, historians, and engineers. From the self-healing properties of Roman concrete to the precision of Indus Valley plumbing systems, these discoveries don't just belong to history, they echo into our present, shaping the world we live in. So if you've ever wondered how the past could hold such brilliance, or why these ancient wonders still captivate us today, you're about to find out. Get ready to see history in a whole new light. Buried beneath the waves for 2,000 years, the Antikythera Mechanism emerged as a time capsule of genius, a bronze masterpiece so advanced that historians at first refused to believe it could be ancient. When sponge divers stumbled upon its corroded fragments off the coast of a tiny Greek island in 1901, they had no idea they were holding pieces of a technology that wouldn't be matched until the mechanical clocks of the Renaissance. Imagine a device no larger than a shoebox, crammed with over 30 interlocking bronze gears, each tooth precision cut to track the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. This wasn't just a calendar or simple star chart. It could predict solar eclipses down to the hour and even model the irregular orbit of the moon, accounting for subtle gravitational wobbles that modern astronomers only confirmed with satellites. The craftsmanship is mind-bending. Microscopic inscriptions on the mechanism's plates serve as an ancient user manual, explaining how to read its celestial predictions. X-ray scans revealed hidden gears so tiny and perfectly spaced that they rival the precision of 18th century Swiss watchmaking. But here's the real mystery: we've found nothing else like it. No prototypes, no earlier versions, no records of its creation in the writings of Aristotle or Archimedes. It's as if this device appeared out of nowhere, a flash of brilliance that hints at a lost school of engineering. Some scholars now suspect it might have come from the workshop of Hipparchus, the father of trigonometry, or perhaps Posidonius, a philosopher who built intricate models of the heavens. What's equally fascinating is what the Antikythera Mechanism implies about the ancient world's technological ecosystem. Gears this precise required specialized tools, tiny files, lathes, and measuring instruments that simply don't appear in the archaeological record. Were there entire workshops dedicated to such devices now vanished? And if so, how much more might they have achieved? The shipwreck where it was found also held statues, coins, and glassware, suggesting this mechanism wasn't some royal novelty but part of a broader trade in sophisticated goods. Perhaps the most haunting question isn't how the Greeks built it, but why the knowledge behind it disappeared for 1500 years. The dark ages that followed the fall of Rome saw much of this ingenuity forgotten, only to be painfully rediscovered centuries later. As marine archaeologists keep scanning the Mediterranean seabed, who knows what other mechanical marvels might still lie hidden, waiting to shatter our assumptions about the past. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just a relic, it's a humbling reminder that history's greatest innovations sometimes vanish, only to resurface when we least expect them. While the Antikythera Mechanism reveals the Greeks' mastery of precision engineering, the Romans left us something even more tangible, a building material so durable it's still standing strong after 2 millennia. Walk into the Pantheon in Rome today, and you'll find its massive dome intact, untouched by time, while modern concrete structures crumble after just decades. The secret, a recipe lost to history for nearly 1500 years. Roman concrete wasn't just strong, it literally healed itself. Scientists only recently cracked the mystery. Modern concrete relies on Portland cement, a mixture that forms brittle cracks when exposed to water and salt. But Roman engineers mixed volcanic ash from the Pozzuoli region with lime and seawater, creating a chemical reaction that continues to this day. Microscopic analysis shows crystals of a rare mineral called aluminous tobermorite growing within the ancient concrete, filling cracks as they form. It's as if the material possesses a biological immune system, repairing itself without human intervention. Even more astonishing structures submerged in seawater, like Roman harbors, grow stronger over time as the saltwater activates this healing process. Why did such a revolutionary technology vanish? Part of the answer lies in the fall of Rome itself. As the empire fragmented, specialized knowledge scattered. The volcanic ash critical to the formula came from specific Italian quarries, and without Rome's vast trade networks, accessing it became impossible. Medieval builders reverted to simpler mortar recipes, unaware of what they'd lost. But there's another twist. Roman concrete took months to cure, while modern construction demands speed. In our era of rapid urbanization, we've prioritized convenience over longevity, though that trade-off now costs billions in infrastructure repairs. Today, researchers are racing to reverse engineer this ancient marvel. A team at the University of Utah discovered that adding volcanic rock to modern concrete mimics the self-healing properties, while others experiment with seawater curing. The implications are staggering, from earthquake-resistant bridges to seawalls that fortify themselves against rising oceans. The Pantheon's dome, still the world's largest unreinforced concrete structure, silently challenges our assumptions about progress. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the newest one, but a forgotten innovation waiting to be rediscovered. The Great Pyramid of Giza doesn't just dominate the desert skyline, it defies logic. Every aspect of its construction whispers secrets we're still struggling to decode. Take its near-perfect alignment with true north, accurate to within a fraction of a degree. Modern architects using GPS and laser levels would struggle to match this precision. Yet the pyramid's builders achieved it over 4,500 years ago, long before magnetic compasses existed. How? One compelling theory points to the ancient Egyptians tracking the stars. By observing the simultaneous transit of two circumpolar stars across the night sky, they could pinpoint celestial north with astonishing accuracy, a method so advanced that modern astronomers only confirmed its viability in the late 20th century. But the real jaw-dropper lies in the pyramid's masonry. Each of its estimated 2,300,000 limestone blocks fits together with gaps measuring less than half a millimeter tighter than the seams of a smartphone screen. Run your hand along the joints and you'll feel no irregularities, just an eerie smoothness that modern diamond-tipped saws struggle to replicate, even more baffling. Many of these stones aren't simple cubes but complex polygonal shapes with interlocking angles, carved so precisely that they distribute weight evenly across the entire structure. This isn't just stacking blocks, it's a masterclass in earthquake-resistant engineering, which explains why the pyramid has survived millennia of shifting sands and tectonic activity. Theories about how they pulled this off range from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some researchers suggest they used leveled wooden sleds and wet sand to reduce friction when hauling stones, while others point to evidence of advanced copper saws embedded with abrasive quartz crystals. Then there are the fringe ideas like claims of sonic levitation or lost vibrational tools, though no physical evidence supports these. What's undeniable is the Egyptians' deep understanding of mathematics. The pyramid's base perimeter divided by twice its height gives us pi accurate to 4 decimal places, suggesting they might have grasped concepts we typically attribute to later Greek mathematicians. Perhaps the most humbling realization isn't just how they built it, but why we still can't fully replicate their techniques today. Modern engineers using computer modeling and hydraulic cranes have attempted small-scale reconstructions, only to find the logistics overwhelming. The pyramid stands as a silent rebuke to our assumptions about progress, proof that ancient civilizations could rival, and in some way surpass, our technological prowess. As laser scans reveal hidden chambers and new celestial correlations, one thing becomes clear: this isn't just a tomb. It's a 4,500-year-old challenge, daring us to unravel its mysteries. Imagine a weapon so terrifying that enemy sailors would leap into the sea rather than face it, a liquid fire that clung to skin, devoured wooden ships, and burned even as waves crashed over it. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded secret and the medieval equivalent of a superweapon. First deployed in the 7th century, it turned the tide of naval battles for nearly 800 years, allowing Constantinople to repel invaders despite being outnumbered again and again. The sight of it alone was enough to send armies into panic. Historical accounts describe flames roaring like dragons, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter across the water with an eerie hiss, impossible to extinguish with sand, vinegar, or even urine, the usual methods for dousing fires at sea. What made Greek fire so revolutionary wasn't just its destructive power, but its engineering. Unlike ordinary fire arrows or pots of burning pitch, this substance could be launched through pressurized bronze tubes mounted on ships, functioning like ancient flamethrowers. Some historians believe these siphons used a form of pump mechanism, possibly operated by hand cranks, allowing crews to aim the stream of fire with deadly precision. The fuel itself remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries. The Byzantines called it liquid fire or sea fire, and the penalty for revealing its recipe was said to be death. Modern theories range from a napalm-like mixture of petroleum and quicklime which ignites upon contact with water, to more exotic ingredients like pine resin or even powdered calcium phosphide, a chemical that bursts into flames when wet. The strategic impact was staggering. In 678, a vastly outnumbered Byzantine fleet used Greek fire to annihilate an Arab armada besieging Constantinople, saving the empire from collapse. Later, it shielded Christian Europe during the Crusades, buying time against advancing forces. Yet for all its might, the knowledge vanished after the fall of Constantinople in 1254. Some speculate the secret died with the last imperial alchemists, while others believe surviving recipes were deliberately destroyed to keep them from enemies. What's most striking isn't just the loss of the formula, but what its existence reveals about Byzantine innovation. This wasn't crude warfare. It was chemical engineering on a level Europe wouldn't see again until World War II. The empire's scientists likely experimented for decades to perfect the blend, balancing flammability, viscosity, and stability in a way that could be weaponized safely. Today, military historians study Greek fire not as a curiosity, but as a case study in how technology shapes destiny. Its ghost lingers in modern incendiary weapons, a reminder that even the most advanced secrets can slip through time's fingers, leaving us to wonder what other breakthroughs might have been lost to the ages. Tucked away in the basement of the National Museum of Iraq lies an unassuming clay pot that could rewrite the history of technology. Discovered in 1936 near Baghdad, this 2,000-year-old artifact looks deceptively simple. A 13-centimeter jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod sealed with asphalt. But when German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig examined it closely, he made a startling claim. This might be the world's oldest known battery. Replicas built using the same materials filled with vinegar or grape juice as an electrolyte have produced around 1 volt of electricity, enough to create a mild tingling sensation or electroplate small objects. That might not sound impressive today, but consider this. The principles behind batteries weren't formally understood until the late 18th century, when Luigi Galvani and Alessandro Volta began their experiments. If Koenig was right, the Parthians or Sasanians might have harnessed electricity over a millennium earlier. What would they have used it for? One compelling theory involves electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver using electrical currents. Artisans in ancient Mesopotamia were known to gild jewelry with techniques that modern scientists struggle to explain without electricity. Another possibility is medical application. Historical texts describe using electric fish to numb pain, suggesting an awareness of electricity's effects. Then there's the spiritual angle. Imagine priests using these devices to create mysterious tingles during temple rituals, convincing worshippers of divine contact. Skeptics argue the jar might have been a storage vessel for sacred scrolls, pointing out that no wires or connected devices have been found. But here's the counterpoint. Organic materials like cloth or reed wires would have decayed over centuries, leaving no trace. The asphalt sealant, however, hints at something more deliberate. It's an excellent insulator, precisely what you'd need to prevent accidental discharges. The bigger question isn't just whether this single artifact worked, but what it implies about lost knowledge. If one battery survived, how many others crumbled to dust? Could entire workshops have produced these devices, their techniques erased by time? Unlike Greek fire or Roman concrete, this isn't a technology tied to a specific empire. It's a fundamental discovery that could have spread across trade routes, popping up in different forms. Modern experiments show that linking multiple Baghdad-style batteries in series can produce enough voltage to light a small LED, proving the concept's viability. It's a haunting thought. Flickering lamps or gilded statues created 2,000 years before the scientific revolution. Whether ritual tool, medical device, or artisan's secret, this humble jar forces us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient innovation and how much brilliance might still lie buried, waiting to surprise us. While many ancient civilizations left behind temples or tombs as their legacy, the people of the Indus Valley built something far more practical, a sanitation system so advanced it wouldn't look out of place in a modern city. Walk through the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro today, and you'll find brick-lined drains running beneath every street, complete with manhole covers for maintenance, all dating back to 2600 BC. That's over 4,500 years before germ theory, before pressurized plumbing, even before the wheel was in widespread use. Yet here, in the heart of what's now Pakistan, an entire civilization had mastered urban hygiene on a scale Europe wouldn't achieve until the 19th century. What makes these systems extraordinary isn't just their existence, but their thoughtful design. Each home had its own bathing area with a sloped floor directing wastewater into covered street drains, which then fed into larger sewer mains. The bricks were laid with precision, angled slightly to maintain a self-cleaning flow, a technique modern engineers call minimum gradient. Archaeologists have even found evidence of sedimentation tanks, suggesting they filtered waste before it entered river systems. This wasn't just functional infrastructure, it was public health engineering at its finest, preventing diseases like dysentery and cholera that would plague other ancient cities. The real mystery lies in how they achieved this without the tools we associate with large-scale construction. Unlike the Egyptians or Mesopotamians, the Indus people left no records of kings or slave labor forces. Instead, their cities reveal a society that valued collective well-being. Neighborhoods were laid out in organized grids, with every house connected to the drainage network, no elite enclaves with private systems, no slums left without access. Some researchers believe this points to a form of early democracy or shared governance, where urban planning served everyone equally. Modern comparisons are startling. London's infamous Great Stink of 1858, when sewage choked Thames forced Parliament to suspend sessions, happened precisely because the city lacked what Mohenjo-Daro had perfected millennia earlier. Even today, over 2 billion people globally lack safe sanitation, a crisis this ancient civilization solved with nothing more than baked clay and gravity. Their legacy challenges our assumptions about progress. Sometimes the most profound innovations aren't towering monuments, but the invisible systems that keep societies healthy. As climate change makes water management increasingly urgent, we might finally be ready to learn from these master engineers of the past. In the year 132, while most of the world still blamed earthquakes on angry gods or mythical creatures, a Chinese polymath named Zhang unveiled a device that would change history. His seismoscope, a bronze vessel adorned with 8 dragon heads, each holding a metal ball, could not only detect distant quakes but point toward their origin with eerie accuracy. When an earthquake struck 400 miles away in 138, the device's westward-facing dragon dropped its ball into a waiting frog's mouth, alerting officials to a disaster they hadn't yet felt. To a world without seismographs or radio communications, this must have seemed like magic. The engineering behind it was centuries ahead of its time. Inside the ornate vessel, historians believe a suspended pendulum swayed with the slightest tremors, triggering one of 8 delicate levers that released the corresponding dragon's ball. What's astonishing isn't just the mechanical precision, it's the scientific insight. Zhang understood that earthquakes produced waves that could travel vast distances, a concept formal seismology wouldn't grasp until the 19th century. His design even accounted for directional accuracy, allowing officials to dispatch aid efficiently rather than blindly searching a province. Modern researchers have tried for decades to replicate its sensitivity. A 2005 reconstruction using Zhang's descriptions detected quakes as weak as magnitude 4, matching early 20th century seismographs. Some engineers speculate the bronze resonance amplified subtle vibrations, acting like an acoustic lens. Others point to the pendulum's precise weight distribution calculations that would require advanced knowledge of harmonics and inertia. The most haunting question isn't how Zhang built it, but why this breakthrough remained isolated. While later Chinese dynasties preserved his star charts and poetry, the seismoscope's mechanisms faded into legend. Europe wouldn't develop functional seismometers until 1855, relying on crude pendulum designs far less sophisticated than Zhang's. Perhaps the answer lies in the device's fragility. Its bronze mechanisms may have been too delicate to survive wars or neglect, leaving only tantalizing descriptions in imperial records. Today, as scientists develop fiber optic cables to detect quakes through subtle shifts in light, Zhang's invention feels strangely contemporary. It reminds us that innovation isn't always linear, that brilliance can flash brightly in one era, only to be rediscovered millennia later. The next time your phone buzzes with an earthquake alert, remember, the technology behind it shares an unbroken thread with a 2,000-year-old dragon vessel, proof that the past still has lessons to teach. Etched into the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nasca Lines stretch across nearly 200 square miles of desert like a colossal canvas, massive figures of spiders, hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric shapes so large they can only be fully appreciated from hundreds of feet in the air. Created by the Nazca people between 500 BC and 500 CE, these geoglyphs weren't just scratched into the earth, they were engineered with astonishing precision. The largest figures span over 1,200 feet, their lines razor straight for miles, curving into perfect spirals or abrupt angles without a single visible misstep. How did a culture without aerial views, advanced mathematics, or even the wheel achieve such accuracy? The process itself was deceptively simple yet required meticulous planning. Artists removed the dark, iron-rich top layer of desert pavement to reveal the lighter subsoil beneath, creating high-contrast designs that have endured for centuries thanks to the region's unique climate, less than an inch of annual rainfall, and winds that sweep dust away rather than bury the lines. But the real genius lies in the scaling. Researchers have found small-scale versions of the designs on pottery and textiles, suggesting the Nazca used a grid system to transfer these patterns onto the desert floor. By enlarging the grid with ropes and stakes, they could replicate the proportions flawlessly, a technique still used by modern muralists. Purpose remains the greatest mystery. Early theories proposed the lines were an astronomical calendar, aligning with solstices or constellations, but computer analyses have found only partial correlations. Another hypothesis suggests they marked sacred pathways for rituals, with walkers tracing the lines to commune with deities. Then there's the more controversial idea popularized in the 1960s, that they served as landing markers for extraterrestrial visitors. While this captures imaginations, archaeologists point to simpler explanations. The Nazca may have created them as offerings to mountain or sky gods, visible only to deities looking down. What's often overlooked is the sheer logistical feat. Some lines run dead straight for up to 30 miles across uneven terrain, implying the Nazca had surveying skills rivaling Roman engineers. They likely used wooden sighting towers or smoke signals to maintain alignment, though no such tools have survived. Even more intriguing are the biomorphic designs like the 300-foot hummingbird, its wings perfectly symmetrical, or the spiral-tailed monkey with anatomically accurate fingers. These weren't abstract doodles, they reflected deep ecological knowledge, depicting species from distant rainforests the Nazca traded with. Modern technology has only deepened the wonder. Drone surveys recently uncovered dozens of previously unknown lines, including a sprawling humanoid figure and a feline stretching across a hillside. Satellite imagery reveals many geoglyphs follow underground water routes, hinting at a practical function in guiding communities to scarce resources. Yet for all our tools, we still lack definitive answers. The Nazca left no written records, and Spanish chroniclers never documented the lines, leaving them to fade into legend until airplanes rediscovered them in the 1920s. Perhaps the most compelling lesson isn't about aliens or ancient astronauts, but human ingenuity. Without drones or blueprints, the Nazca transformed their landscape into a gallery only the heavens could fully admire, a testament to how creativity and precision can transcend the limits of technology. As erosion and human activity threaten these fragile artworks, they remind us that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only marveled at. A blade so sharp it could split a falling silk scarf in midair, yet strong enough to cleave through iron armor without losing its edge. This was the legendary power of Damascus Steel. Forged in the workshops of medieval Syria and Persia, these swords became the stuff of myth, coveted by crusaders who witnessed them slicing through European broadswords like butter. What made them extraordinary wasn't just their performance, but the mystery behind their creation, a metallurgical secret so closely guarded that when the last master smiths died without passing on their knowledge, the technique vanished for centuries. The steel's distinctive rippling patterns, resembling flowing water or woven silk, weren't just decorative, they were the visible signature of an ultra-high-carbon alloy with properties modern science struggles to reproduce. Ancient blacksmiths started with wood steel, a rare ingot imported from India containing trace impurities like vanadium and tungsten. Through a process called crucible forging, they heated and folded the metal dozens of times, not just to remove flaws, as in Japanese katana making, but to manipulate its crystalline structure at the atomic level. The result, a blade with microscopic carbon nanotubes, a discovery that shocked researchers when they examined antique samples under electron microscopes in 2006. These nanotubes, formed naturally during forging, acted like a molecular chainmail, granting unparalleled flexibility and edge retention. Recreating this process has become the holy grail of metallurgy. Modern attempts often produce blades with similar patterns, but they lack the legendary performance. The missing key might lie in the raw materials. Wood steel's unique ore deposits, long since exhausted, contain trace elements from ancient meteorite impacts. Others speculate that quenching techniques, using secret herbal brews or animal urine, altered the steel's chemistry in ways we've yet to decode. Even the temperature control was genius. Historical accounts describe smiths judging heat by the color of sunlight reflected off the metal, a skill honed through generations. What's often overlooked is how advanced this technology was for its time. While Europe was still producing brittle, crude iron weapons, Damascus blades exhibited a grasp of materials science that wouldn't become mainstream until the Industrial Revolution. Their durability was no accident. Islamic manuscripts describe rigorous quality tests, including bending swords 90 degrees before they could be sold. The finest examples, like those wielded by Saladin's forces during the Crusades, became diplomatic gifts, symbols of prestige that transcended warfare. Today, the quest to unlock Damascus Steel's secrets continues. Nanotechnologists study its self-assembling carbon structures for applications in unbreakable body armor, while master bladesmiths experiment with powdered metallurgy to approximate its properties. Yet the original methods remain just out of reach, a reminder that some ancient innovations weren't just lucky accidents. They were the product of meticulous, sophisticated craft, honed to perfection and then tragically lost. In an age where we assume knowledge only moves forward, Damascus Steel stands as a humbling counterpoint, proof that progress isn't always linear and that the past sometimes holds brilliance we're still scrambling to comprehend. Buried beneath the ruins of the Palace of Knossos lies a hidden marvel that shatters our assumptions about Bronze Age technology, a plumbing system so sophisticated it wouldn't be out of place in a 19th century city. While most ancient cultures were still hauling water in clay jars, the Minoans of Crete had mastered the art of hydraulic engineering around 1700 BC, complete with flush toilets, terracotta piping, and even a rudimentary form of stormwater management. Step into the palace's Queen's Megaron, and you'll find a stone seat with a carved hole, connected to a drainage system that used gravity to whisk waste away through underground channels. This wasn't some crude pit latrine, it was a sanitary revolution, predating Rome's famed sewers by more than 1,000 years. The genius of the system lay in its simplicity and foresight. Clay pipes carefully tapered to maintain water pressure, snaked beneath the palace floors, supplying fresh water from mountain springs while separate channels carried wastewater outward. Archaeologists have found U-shaped sections designed to slow flow and prevent clogs, a technique still used in modern plumbing, even more impressive. The Minoans built their pipes with slight gradients, ensuring self-cleaning flow, a concept engineers now call minimum velocity design. But here's the real kicker. Some conduits featured removable stone lids, suggesting a maintenance system where workers could access and repair blockages. How did a civilization without metal tools or written engineering manuals achieve this? Part of the answer lies in Knossos' location. Frequent earthquakes forced the Minoans to innovate, creating flexible joints between pipes that could withstand tremors. Their ceramic craftsmanship also played a role. The same artisans who produced exquisite pottery likely applied their kiln-fired precision to plumbing. Yet the broader mystery is why this knowledge didn't spread. Unlike Roman aqueducts, Minoan plumbing remained an isolated phenomenon, its secrets lost when their civilization collapsed around 1400 BC, possibly due to volcanic eruption or invasion. Modern comparisons are striking. London's first comprehensive sewer system wasn't built until 1858, and even then, it lacked the Minoans' dual-channel separation of clean and waste water. Today, as archaeologists use ground-penetrating radar to map Knossos' hidden pipelines, we're left to wonder, if this technology had endured, how much sooner might humanity have conquered waterborne diseases? The palace's silent, flowing veins remind us that progress isn't inevitable sometimes. The most advanced solutions emerge in the unlikeliest of eras, only to vanish, waiting centuries for rediscovery. Imagine setting sail across the vast Pacific Ocean in nothing more than a wooden outrigger canoe, with no compass, no maps, and no GPS. Just the stars above, the waves below, and the flight patterns of birds to guide you. This wasn't some reckless adventure. It was routine for Polynesian navigators who mastered the art of wayfinding with such precision that they could pinpoint specks of land thousands of miles apart. While European explorers were still clinging to coastlines for fear of getting lost, Polynesians had already colonized every habitable island across 10 million square miles of ocean, from Hawaii to New Zealand to Easter Island. Their secret, a navigation system so intuitive, it's been called the original GPS. At the heart of their skill was an encyclopedic knowledge of the night sky. Polynesian navigators memorized the rising and setting positions of over 250 stars, using them as celestial signposts. But they didn't just rely on static charts, they understood that stars move in predictable arcs, creating mental star paths that functioned like highways across the water. A master navigator could sense slight deviations in these paths caused by currents or wind drift, adjusting course in real time. They even used the stars to gauge latitude. When certain constellations dipped too low or rose too high, they knew they'd strayed too far north or south. Yet the stars were only part of the story. Polynesians read the ocean itself like a living map. They observed how swells reflected off distant islands, creating interference patterns that could be felt through the hull of their canoes. Subtle changes in wave direction or frequency signaled land long before it was visible. They also tracked the behavior of marine life, schools of fish gathering near reefs, or the sudden appearance of seabirds like the Manu Oku, whose morning flight toward food and evening returns to land acted as natural compasses. Even the color of clouds mattered. A faint greenish tint might indicate sunlight reflecting off a lagoon miles away. Perhaps most astonishing was their use of etak, a mental calculation system that allowed them to track progress without instruments. Imagine a navigator picturing an imaginary island drifting beneath the horizon as a reference point, updating its position based on speed and time. This abstract thinking, akin to dead reckoning but far more sophisticated, enabled voyages lasting weeks with pinpoint accuracy. Oral traditions tell of navigators like Maupiailug, who in 1976 stunned modern sailors by guiding a replica canoe from Hawaii to Tahiti using only ancient methods, proving these techniques weren't lost to history. What's often overlooked is the sheer scale of their achievements. The Polynesian settlement of Hawaii, for example, required crossing 2,400 miles of open ocean, a journey equivalent to sailing from London to New York without instruments. And they didn't just stumble upon these islands. Evidence suggests they made return trips, maintaining trade networks across impossible distances. Their double-hulled canoes, lashed together with coconut fiber and rigged with woven sails, were feats of engineering capable of carrying families, livestock, and even entire ecosystems of plants for colonization. Modern science is only now catching up to their wisdom. Researchers using satellite data have confirmed that Polynesian wave pattern navigation can detect islands up to 50 miles away, far beyond the horizon. Meanwhile, their star path methods have inspired algorithms for autonomous drone navigation. Yet for all our technology, we've lost something profound: the intimate, embodied knowledge that turned the Pacific into a highway rather than a barrier. The Polynesians didn't conquer the ocean. They listened to it, learned from it, and in doing so, achieved one of humanity's greatest feats of exploration without ever needing to draw a map. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon stand as one of history's most tantalizing enigmas, a verdant paradise said to have risen above the Mesopotamian desert like a mirage made real. Ancient writers like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus described tiered terraces overflowing with exotic trees, vines, and flowers, their roots watered by a hidden network of canals and screws that defied the arid climate. If they existed, these gardens would have been a triumph of hydraulic engineering, requiring innovations centuries ahead of their time. But here's the twist: despite their fame, no physical trace has ever been found in Babylon's ruins. So were they real, or merely a traveler's fantasy that grew into legend? The engineering described in ancient accounts is astonishingly plausible. To keep plants alive in the scorching Mesopotamian heat, the gardens would have needed a constant flow of water. No small feat when the nearest major river, the Euphrates, lay far below. Greek historians claimed a complex system of screw pumps, possibly inspired by Archimedes' later design, lifted water to the highest terraces, where it cascaded down through channels and porous layers of reeds and stone. Some theories suggest a chain pump, a loop of buckets powered by laborers or oxen, could have recycled water efficiently. The garden's structure itself may have been a marvel. Vaulted stone chambers described by Diodorus would have prevented root rot while supporting the weight of soil and trees, essentially creating a giant, elevated greenhouse. Yet the absence of archaeological evidence is glaring. Excavations at Babylon have uncovered majestic gates and palaces, but nothing matching the garden's description. One provocative theory suggests the gardens weren't in Babylon at all, but in Nineveh, built by the Assyrian king Sennacherib a century earlier. His palace inscriptions boast of an unrivaled garden, watered by bronze screws, and recent discoveries there include remnants of an elaborate aqueduct system. Could later chroniclers have confused the two cities? Whether fact or fiction, the Hanging Gardens reveal something profound about ancient ingenuity. Even if they were embellished, the very idea captivated contemporaries because it seemed possible proof that human creativity could bend nature to its will. Modern experiments show the described irrigation methods could work. Replicas using screw pumps and tiered planting have thrived in desert climates. Perhaps the garden's greatest legacy isn't in stone or soil, but in the audacity they represent. The dream of turning barren land into abundance, a challenge we're still grappling with today. From Dubai's skyscraper greenery to vertical farms in Singapore, the spirit of the Hanging Gardens lives on, not as a relic, but as a timeless symbol of what happens when imagination and engineering collide. High in the Andes Mountains, the stone walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a silent challenge to modern engineering. These massive blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with such precision that you couldn't slide a single sheet of paper between them. No mortar, no gaps, just seamless perfection carved from solid granite. What's even more astonishing is how these stones aren't simple rectangles but complex polygonal shapes with as many as 12 angles, each interlocking like a three-dimensional puzzle. The Incas didn't just build walls, they crafted geological jigsaws that have withstood 500 years of earthquakes without a single collapse. So how did a civilization without iron tools, the wheel, or even a written language achieve this? One clue lies in the quarry sites, where half-carved stones still bear the marks of their creation. Archaeologists have found evidence that the Incas used harder stones like diorite to pound and shape granite, gradually grinding surfaces flat through patient abrasion. But this doesn't fully explain the precision. Some researchers point to a technique called pillow facing, where masons would carve a slight convex bulge on one stone to perfectly match the concave depression of another, creating a bond so tight it distributed seismic energy evenly. Then there's the mystery of transportation. How did they move these megaliths across steep mountain terrain? The Incas left no records, but experiments show it might have involved a combination of log rollers, rope leverage, and sheer manpower. Oral traditions speak of a plant called quewacha, which some believe could soften stone when applied, though no such substance has been identified. Modern attempts to replicate the construction using these methods have failed spectacularly. One team using hundreds of workers couldn't maneuver a single 10-ton block into place with the same accuracy. What's often overlooked is the sophistication behind what seems like simple stacking. The walls aren't just tight, they're deliberately irregular. This chaotic pattern actually makes them more resilient to earthquakes by allowing slight movement without collapse. The Incas understood their environment intimately, building not just for beauty but for survival in one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. Machu Picchu's famous 12-angle stone exemplifies this genius. Nestled into a corner, it locks into surrounding blocks with a precision that modern laser cutters would struggle to match. Yet the Incas achieved this with nothing more than hand tools and an uncanny grasp of geometry. Their legacy isn't just in what they built, but in what they left unsaid. A silent lesson in how mastery of materials can outlast empires, languages, and even time itself. Imagine a single building containing every breakthrough in human knowledge, mathematical proofs that would take centuries to rediscover, medical treatises detailing surgeries unknown to medieval Europe, star charts mapping celestial movements with uncanny precision. This wasn't fantasy, it was the Library of Alexandria, a beacon of learning so influential that its destruction remains one of history's greatest intellectual tragedies. Founded in the 3rd century BC under Egypt's Ptolemaic rulers, the library wasn't just a storage room for scrolls. It was the ancient world's equivalent of a cutting-edge research university, attracting geniuses like Archimedes and Euclid, who walked its halls debating geometry and physics. At its peak, the library housed an estimated 500,000 scrolls, painstakingly collected from every corner of the known world. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were searched not for contraband, but for books any found were copied by scribes, with the originals kept in the library's vast collections. This aggressive acquisition strategy created a repository of knowledge unmatched in antiquity, blending Egyptian, Greek, Babylonian, and Indian scholarship. Within these walls, Eratosthenes calculated Earth's circumference with an error margin of just 2%, while Herophilus dissected human cadavers and correctly identified the brain as the seat of consciousness, a concept Europe wouldn't embrace for another 1800 years. The real marvel wasn't just the volume of knowledge, but how it was organized. The library's chief librarian, Callimachus, developed the first known system of cataloging, sorting scrolls by subject and author in a proto-Dewey Decimal System. Scholars could cross-reference texts on astronomy, medicine, and philosophy, creating interdisciplinary connections that fueled breakthroughs. One surviving example: Hipparchus used Babylonian eclipse records preserved in the library to discover the precession of equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, shattering the Greek belief in an unchanging cosmos. Yet the library's fate remains shrouded in controversy. Contrary to popular belief, it likely didn't perish in a single catastrophic fire. Historical accounts point to a gradual decline. Caesar's siege in 48 BC damaged parts of the collection. Christian riots in the 4th century targeted pagan texts, and by the time Muslim armies arrived in the 7th century, much of the knowledge had already scattered or been destroyed. The true tragedy isn't just the physical loss, but the intellectual dead ends it created. Imagine how differently history might have unfolded if works like Archimedes' treatise on infinitesimals, a precursor to calculus, had survived intact instead of lingering in fragments. Modern archaeology hints at what we've lost. In 2004, divers discovered what may be the library's remains beneath Alexandria's harbor. Collapsed columns and statues surrounded by fragments of pottery once used to store scrolls. Meanwhile, the Vatican's secret archives hold medieval copies of texts purportedly smuggled from Alexandria, their origins still debated. The library's ghost lingers in today's digital age, as projects like Google Books and the Internet Archive strive to create a similarly universal repository, proof that humanity's thirst to gather and preserve knowledge transcends millennia. Perhaps the most poignant lesson of Alexandria isn't about destruction, but resilience. Even as flames claimed scrolls, ideas survived in the minds of scholars who fled to Baghdad, Constantinople, and beyond, seeding future revolutions in science and philosophy. The library's legacy reminds us that knowledge is both fragile and indestructible, easier to burn than to erase completely. In an era where data can vanish with a keystroke, its story feels painfully relevant. Progress isn't inevitable, and every golden age rests on foundations as delicate as papyrus. Standing in the courtyard of Delhi's Qutb Minar complex, a 7-ton iron pillar rises 23 feet into the air, its surface smooth and uncorrupted by time. What makes it extraordinary isn't its size, it's the fact that after 1,600 monsoons, scorching summers, and centuries of pollution, this ancient monument hasn't rusted. Not a single flake. While modern steel bridges require constant repainting to combat corrosion, the iron pillar of Delhi defies chemistry, its secrets locked in the ingenuity of 4th century Indian metallurgists. The pillar's immunity to rust stems from a deliberate recipe, not luck. Modern analysis reveals its iron contains an unusually high phosphorus content, nearly 1%, combined with minimal sulfur and manganese. This precise blend creates a thin, invisible protective film of iron hydrogen phosphate that forms naturally on the surface, shielding the metal from oxygen and moisture. The real puzzle, achieving this in an era when smelting was more art than science. Unlike today's controlled industrial processes, ancient Indian blacksmiths likely relied on trial and error, gradually refining their techniques over generations. They may have used specific iron ores rich in phosphorus or added organic materials like bones or seeds during smelting, unknowingly introducing the key ingredient. But the metallurgical genius doesn't stop there. The pillar's craftsmanship reveals a mastery of forging that rivals modern engineering. Its near-pure iron structure, over 98% pure, was hammered into shape from multiple discs heated and fused together, a technique called forge welding. This method eliminated weak points and impurities, creating a density that further resists corrosion. Even the pillar's inscriptions, praising a king named Chandra, remain crisp and legible, their precision suggesting tools far more advanced than the simple hammers and chisels typically associated with ancient metalwork. What's most baffling is how this knowledge faded. While the pillar stood as a silent testament to India's metallurgical prowess, European ironmakers spent centuries struggling with brittle, rust-prone metals. Some historians speculate the technique was a closely guarded guild secret, lost when political upheavals disrupted artisan communities. Others suggest the shift to mass-produced, lower-quality iron during later empires caused the method to fall out of favor. Today, scientists study the pillar for insights into sustainable materials. Its self-protecting film could inspire new alloys for ships or pipelines, reducing the need for toxic coatings. Yet despite our advanced tools, we've never fully replicated its perfection, a humbling reminder that ancient innovations sometimes surpass our own. The pillar's endurance isn't just a quirk of chemistry, it's a monument to human curiosity, proof that brilliance can outlast empires, languages, and even the relentless march of time. Rising from a small island at the mouth of Alexandria's harbor, the pharaoh's lighthouse didn't just guide ships, it redefined what was possible. At over 330 feet, it stood taller than the Statue of Liberty's pedestal, its beacon visible from 35 miles out to sea. For 17 centuries, this marble colossus defied storms, earthquakes, and the ravages of saltwater, a feat that makes modern skyscrapers seem almost fragile by comparison. But what really set it apart wasn't just its height, it was the ingenuity behind its light. Ancient accounts describe a mirror at the summit, likely polished bronze, capable of reflecting sunlight so intensely that sailors mistook it for a second sun. At night, fires fueled by wood or possibly even naphtha, a crude oil distillate, cast a glow that pierced the Mediterranean darkness. Some historians speculate the mirror might have been concave, focusing light into a directional beam centuries before Fresnel lenses. The effect was so striking that pharaohs became the root word for lighthouse in Greek, French, and half a dozen other languages, proof of its cultural impact. Construction in the 3rd century BCE was a logistical nightmare. Without cranes or steel reinforcement, engineers relied on brute force and clever physics. The lighthouse's 3-tiered design wasn't just for show. The square base provided stability against waves, the octagonal midsection absorbed wind shear, and the cylindrical top minimized weight at the highest point. Workers likely used an earth ramp spiraling around the structure, dragging limestone blocks weighing up to 70 tons with ropes and pulleys, the real masterstroke. An interior spiral ramp wide enough for donkeys to haul fuel to the summit, a feature later lighthouses would mimic for millennia. What's often overlooked is the lighthouse's role as a scientific instrument. Strabo wrote that its mirror could spot ships before they were visible to the naked eye, suggesting an early understanding of magnification. Others claim it doubled as an astronomical observatory, with priests tracking celestial movements from its heights. Even its collapse in the 14th century couldn't erase its legacy. The rubble became part of the Qaitbay citadel, and fragments of its stones still line Alexandria's harbor walls. Today, as sonar and GPS render traditional lighthouses obsolete, the Pharos endures as a symbol of human ambition. Its DNA lives on in everything from airport control towers to space launch beacons, proof that the best ancient innovations aren't just artifacts, but blueprints for the future. The next time you see a beam of light cutting through darkness, remember, it all began with a flame atop a tower that refused to be ignored. While Europe stumbled through the Dark Ages, the Maya were mapping the heavens with a precision that would make modern astronomers nod in respect. High in the jungles of Chichen Itza, the observatory known as El Caracol, the snail, stands as a testament to their celestial mastery. Its narrow stone slits align perfectly with Venus's most extreme rising and setting points, while the entire structure functions as a giant astronomical calculator. But here's what's truly mind-bending. The Maya calculated Venus's 584-day synodic cycle with an error margin of just 2 hours per century, a feat unmatched until the invention of telescopes. Their secret lay in relentless observation and mathematical genius. Without lenses or brass instruments, Mayan astronomers used carefully aligned buildings to create artificial horizons. Narrow windows in temple walls framed specific stars, while staircases doubled as calendrical markers, the play of shadows during equinoxes revealing celestial patterns. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan texts, contains pages of precise eclipse tables predicting lunar events centuries in advance. They even accounted for the slight wobble in Earth's rotation that gradually changes eclipse timing, a phenomenon modern science only confirmed with satellites. What set the Maya apart was their fusion of astronomy and mathematics. While Europeans still used clumsy Roman numerals, Mayan scribes worked with a base 20 system, including the concept of zero, allowing complex calculations their contemporaries couldn't dream of. Their long-count calendar could pinpoint dates across millennia with accuracy rivaling our Gregorian system. But this wasn't just abstract science, it governed daily life. Kings timed wars to celestial events, believing Venus's movements influenced battle outcomes. Farmers relied on astronomical almanacs that still match today's planting seasons with uncanny accuracy. The real mystery isn't how they achieved such precision, it's why this knowledge faded. As Spanish conquistadors burned codices and dismantled temples, they unknowingly erased centuries of accumulated wisdom. Modern archaeologists are still piecing together fragments, discovering that what we once considered primitive was in fact a sophisticated cosmic science. When NASA needed help predicting solar particle storms, they consulted the Dresden Codex's eclipse tables, proving that sometimes the oldest maps still light the way forward. Stretching over 4,000 miles across deserts, mountains, and steppes, the Silk Road wasn't a single path but a sprawling web of trade routes, the original superhighway of the ancient world. Picture camel caravans trudging through the Taklamakan Desert, their loads of Chinese silk swaying alongside Roman glass, Indian spices, and Persian carpets. But this network traded far more than material goods. It moved ideas like invisible currency. Buddhism traveled from India to China, paper-making techniques spread westward, and even the concept of zero migrated from Hindu mathematicians to the Arab world, eventually reaching Europe. The Silk Road didn't just connect places, it connected civilizations, creating a cross-continental dialogue that shaped history. What's staggering is how merchants navigated such vast distances without maps or GPS. Survival depended on oral knowledge passed down through generations. Caravan leaders memorized landmarks like the singing sands of the Gobi, where wind made dunes hum, or the scent of specific herbs signaling nearby oases. They timed journeys to avoid mountain snows and desert heat, following stars with a precision that rivaled Polynesian navigators. Rest stops like Samarkand and Kashgar became melting pots where languages, religions, and technologies mingled. A Persian merchant might barter with a Chinese official using standardized weights introduced by the Tang dynasty, while Sogdian translators bridged linguistic gaps, proof that globalization existed long before the term was coined. The real genius of the Silk Road lay in its adaptability. When the Han dynasty needed horses to fight nomadic tribes, they traded silk for Central Asian steeds. When Rome's elite craved exotic luxuries, they paid in silver coins that archaeologists have found as far east as Vietnam. Even seemingly small innovations had ripple effect stirrups, invented by Central Asian nomads, revolutionized medieval warfare after reaching Europe via these routes. And it wasn't just about luxury items. Everyday goods like peaches, originally from China, became Mediterranean staples, while grapes from the West transformed Chinese vineyards. Yet the road's greatest legacy might be its role as history's first information superhighway. A Chinese general's report on Roman engineering techniques could inspire new bridge designs in Persia. Greek medical texts translated into Arabic at Baghdad's House of Wisdom later found their way to European universities. This cross-pollination of knowledge accelerated progress in ways we're still unraveling, like how the Chinese compass, perfected for desert navigation, eventually enabled European voyages to the Americas. Modern parallels are everywhere. The Silk Road's relay system, where goods changed hands between middlemen, mirrors today's supply chains. Its blend of cooperation and competition among traders foreshadowed modern trade agreements. Even its vulnerabilities feel familiar. Bandit attacks led to the first documented travel insurance, while quarantine measures during the plague of Justinian echo our own pandemic responses. As digital networks now connect the world, we're rediscovering what ancient merchants knew, that the exchange of goods is just the beginning. The real treasure lies in what happens when cultures collide, sparking innovations no single civilization could achieve alone. The Silk Road wasn't just a route, it was the pulse of an interconnected ancient world, beating long before globalization became a buzzword. Long before the word robot entered our vocabulary, ancient Greek engineers were dreaming of mechanical life. In the bustling workshops of Alexandria around the 1st century CE, a genius named Hero crafted devices that seemed to defy the limits of his era: steam-powered birds that flapped their wings, automatic temple doors that opened as if by magic, and even a self-propelled cart powered by falling weights. These weren't just fanciful toys, they were the earliest known experiments in automation, hinting at a technological sophistication we rarely associate with the ancient world. Take Hero's famous Eolipile, often called the first steam engine. This hollow metal sphere, mounted on a boiler, would spin rapidly as steam escaped through angled nozzles, a principle identical to modern jet propulsion. While Hero used it as a temple wonder to amaze worshippers, the underlying mechanics reveal an understanding of force and motion that wouldn't be formalized until Newton's time. Even more astonishing were his programmable automata. Historical accounts describe a mechanical theater where tiny figures enacted an entire play: ships sailing, storms raging, and gods descending, all driven by an intricate system of ropes, gears, and rotating drums. This wasn't mere clockwork. It was a precursor to binary programming, with pegs on the drums acting like punch cards to control sequences. But were these inventions isolated marvels or part of a broader tradition? Greek myths brim with references to artificial beings: Tolos, the bronze giant who patrolled Crete's shores, or Hephaestus's golden handmaidens who moved with uncanny grace. While these stories were once dismissed as pure fantasy, archaeological discoveries suggest they might have roots in real engineering. The Antikythera Mechanism proves the Greeks could craft precision gear systems, while recovered fragments of small bronze automatons from Hellenistic temples confirm they built mechanical figures. The line between myth and technology blurs when you consider that Hero's workshop stood in the same city that housed the legendary Library of Alexandria, a place where scholars likely exchanged ideas across disciplines. What's most intriguing is how these inventions vanished from mainstream knowledge. Some historians argue that without widespread industrial applications, automation remained a novelty for the elite. Others point to the destruction of Alexandria's intellectual hubs, where technical manuals may have been lost forever. Yet traces survived in unexpected places. Byzantine emperors commissioned hydraulic singing birds, and Arab scholars like Al-Jazari built upon Greek designs to create elaborate water clocks with moving figures. Even Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks contain sketches eerily similar to Hero's self-propelled cart. Today, as we stand on the brink of an AI revolution, Hero's creations feel less like ancient curiosities and more like prophetic visions. His principles of pneumatics and feedback control underpin everything from factory robots to smart home systems. The Greeks may not have had microchips, but their grasp of mechanical logic was centuries ahead of its time. These forgotten automatons challenge our linear view of progress, proof that innovation can flicker brightly in one era, only to be rediscovered millennia later, as if the past is patiently waiting for us to catch up. Buried beneath the earth for over 2,000 years, the Terracotta Army stands as one of history's most astonishing displays of organized craftsmanship. Discovered in 1974 by farmers digging a well near Xi'an, this sprawling necropolis reveals over 8,000 life-sized soldiers, each with distinct facial features no two alike. From the curve of a brow to the set of a jaw, these aren't generic molds but individualized portraits in clay, a feat that would challenge modern sculptors even with advanced tools. The sheer scale of production is staggering. Imagine coordinating workshops to create an entire army's worth of statues, each one unique, yet all adhering to precise military rankings and uniforms down to the last stitch in their stone-carved armor. The secret to this mass customization lies in an assembly line process far ahead of its time. Archaeologists have identified at least 10 basic face shapes used as templates, but artisans then added personalized details, different hairstyles, mustaches, even expressions ranging from serene to fiercely determined. Some warriors bear traces of paint, suggesting they were once as vibrant as the living soldiers they mirrored. The bodies were standardized in sections: legs, torsos, arms fired separately and assembled later, a modular approach that balanced efficiency with artistic freedom. But here's what's truly remarkable. The clay itself was sourced locally, yet mixed to a consistent formula that prevented cracking during firing, a chemical understanding we'd attribute to modern materials science. Beyond their artistry, the statues reveal sophisticated logistics. Each warrior was marked with the workshop foreman's seal, creating an ancient quality control system. Some bear inscriptions like Year 5 of Kin, allowing historians to trace their production timeline. The kilns needed to fire these giants would have required entire forests of timber, yet the Qin dynasty managed this without ecological collapse, possibly through regulated harvesting. Even the weapons were real crossbows with functional triggers, bronze swords still sharp enough to draw blood today due to an advanced chromium oxide coating that resisted rust. What's often overlooked is the psychological intent behind this army. Qin Shi Huang didn't just want duplicates, he sought immortality through replication. a belief that these figures would serve him in the afterlife as his living army had in conquest. The terracotta faces may represent actual soldiers, a permanent honor guard frozen in time. Modern facial recognition software has catalogued the statues into distinct ethnic groups, hinting at the diversity of the real Qin military. The greatest mystery isn't how they were made, but why this technology vanished. Later Chinese dynasties never replicated such terracotta legions, suggesting the knowledge died with the emperor's artisans. Today, as 3D printing promises a new era of mass customization, we're only beginning to catch up to an innovation perfected in the 3rd century BC. The silent ranks of Xian challenge our assumptions about ancient manufacturing, proof that standardization and individuality aren't modern ideals but timeless human pursuits. Beneath the scorching deserts of Iran, an ancient network of tunnels stretches like hidden veins, carrying life-giving water across impossible distances. These are Kanat's Persia's ingenious answer to arid landscapes, engineered over 2,000 years ago with a simplicity that still leaves hydrologists in awe. Picture a vertical shaft descending into darkness, connecting to gently sloping underground channels that tap into distant mountain aquifers. Unlike open canals that lose precious water to evaporation, Kanats deliver it cool and clean, relying solely on gravity and the Earth's natural insulation. Some run for 40 miles or more, their construction requiring an intimate understanding of geology unseen elsewhere in the ancient world. The brilliance of Kanat construction lies in its precision. Persian engineers called Muqannis used nothing more than plumb lines and astrolabes to plot tunnels with slopes as slight as 1 foot per mile, ensuring water flowed steadily without eroding the channels. Ventilation shafts spaced every 100 feet doubled as access points for maintenance and prevented deadly gas buildup, but the real magic was in locating the water. Muqannis would scout for vegetation patterns or dig test wells, sometimes following the flight of certain birds known to nest near groundwater. Once a source was found, teams dug backward from the destination, removing dirt in woven baskets. A grueling process that could take years, yet resulted in systems lasting centuries. Modern technology has only deepened our appreciation for their foresight. Infrared satellite imagery reveals tens of thousands of Kanats crisscrossing Iran's deserts, many still in use today. In arid regions from Morocco to Afghanistan, communities rely on these ancient channels, which outperform modern pumps by preventing aquifer depletion. UNESCO has designated 11 Iranian Kanats as World Heritage Sites, not just as relics, but as models of sustainable water management. In Yazd, a city encircled by desert, Kanats feed lush courtyard gardens and communal ice houses, structures designed to store winter ice underground, cooled by Kanat airflow for use in summer. What's often overlooked is the Kanat's social impact. Unlike centralized irrigation systems controlled by elites, Kanats fostered cooperation. Water shares were calculated by time a family might receive 2 hours of flow per week, with disputes settled by local councils. The system demanded collective upkeep. If one tunnel collapsed, the entire community suffered. This egalitarian approach to resource management feels strikingly modern, echoing today's debates over water rights and climate resilience. The Kanat's legacy ripples far beyond the Middle East. Spanish colonists brought the concept to Mexico, where galerias supply water to cities like Zacatecas. Even Los Angeles' early water systems drew inspiration from Persian designs. Yet for all their sophistication, Kanats are vanishing. Nearly half of Iran's have dried up due to deep well drilling and neglect. As climate change intensifies droughts, scientists are urgently studying these ancient marvels, recognizing that the past might hold keys to our survival. The Kanat isn't just a relic, it's a whisper from antiquity, reminding us that sustainability isn't a new idea, but a rediscovered one. Deep in the steamy jungles of Veracruz, 17 massive stone faces stare silently across the centuries, each one a mystery carved from a single block of volcanic basalt. The Olmec colossal heads, some standing nearly 10 feet tall and weighing as much as 40 tons, aren't just artistic masterpieces. They're logistical puzzles that defy conventional wisdom about what ancient societies could achieve. With no wheels, no metal tools, and no domesticated animals to assist in transport, the Olmecs somehow quarried these monoliths from mountains over 50 miles away, then hauled them through swamps and rainforests to their final resting places. The sheer audacity of this feat becomes even clearer when you consider the material basalt is one of the hardest volcanic stones, requiring painstaking effort to shape even with modern chisels. What makes these sculptures truly remarkable isn't just their size, but their individuality. Every head bears unique facial features: broad noses, full lips, almond-shaped eyes beneath distinctive helmets, leading scholars to speculate they might represent actual rulers or warriors. Some wear what appear to be padded caps, possibly mimicking the protective gear used in the Olmec's ritual ball games. The realism is striking. You can almost sense the personality behind each face, as if the artisans sought to immortalize not just likenesses but living presence. This level of portraiture is unheard of in other Mesoamerican cultures of the time, suggesting the Olmecs had a highly developed artistic tradition, one that may have influenced later civilizations like the Maya and Aztecs. The real enigma lies in the transportation. Without wheels or draft animals, how did they move these monoliths? One theory points to log rollers and sledges, with teams of laborers slowly inching the stones along makeshift roads. Another suggests they might have used rafts during seasonal floods, floating the heads along river networks. Recent experiments show that even with these methods, moving a single head would require hundreds of workers coordinating for weeks, a staggering organizational feat for a society without written records. The basalt itself offers clues. The stone comes from the Cerro Sintepec volcano, where unfinished heads still lie in quarries, revealing how workers carved them partially before transport to reduce weight. But the mystery deepens when you consider the context. These heads weren't isolated monuments, they were part of elaborate ceremonial centers with pyramids, plazas, and drainage systems rivaling contemporary cities elsewhere in the world. The Olmecs, often called Mesoamerica's mother culture, seem to have mastered urban planning alongside their artistic genius. Yet by 400 BCE, their civilization faded, leaving behind no clear explanation for their decline or the purpose of these haunting stone faces. Were they memorials to fallen leaders, divine guardians, a form of ancient propaganda? Modern technology is slowly peeling back the layers. Ground-penetrating radar has detected possible buried heads at La Venta, hinting that more may await discovery. Meanwhile, chemical analysis of the basalt is tracing exact quarry sources, mapping the Olmec's trade routes in stone. Each revelation only amplifies the questions. In a way, the heads are more than artifacts, they're mirrors, reflecting back our own assumptions about what ancient societies could or couldn't achieve. Their silent gazes challenge us to reconsider the boundaries of innovation, reminding us that some of history's most brilliant minds left no blueprints, only monuments that outlasted empires. Hidden within the dusty scrolls of ancient Egyptian medical papyri lies a startling truth: their physicians weren't just chanting spells and applying bandages. They were performing intricate surgeries, writing detailed anatomical treatises, and even filling cavities with a precision that would make a modern dentist pause. The Ebers papyrus, dating back to 1550 BCE, reads like a medical encyclopedia, documenting everything from tumor removals to wound suturing, all without the benefit of anesthesia or sterilized tools. But what's truly astonishing isn't just their techniques, it's the depth of their pharmacological knowledge. When they prescribed honey for infected wounds, they didn't know about its hydrogen peroxide content or osmotic properties, yet they recognized its power to prevent gangrene. Willow bark tea, their go-to painkiller, contained salicylic acid, the precursor to aspirin. These weren't lucky guesses, they were the result of systematic observation and experimentation across generations. Consider the Edwin Smith Papyrus, the world's oldest surviving surgical text. Unlike other medical writings filled with magical incantations, this manual reads like a modern trauma guide, diagnosing 48 injuries with clinical precision. A fractured skull is described as a wound with a gaping hole where you can feel the brain ripple beneath your fingers. The recommended treatment: cleaning the wound, applying a plaster of animal fat and honey, then immobilizing the head with linen bandages. A remarkably scientific approach for a civilization that supposedly relied on divine intervention. Even their dentistry was advanced. Archaeologists have found mummies with gold-wired bridges, abscesses drained with copper tools, and evidence of successful root canals performed with delicate bronze drills. The real question isn't whether they had skill, it's how they acquired such specific anatomical knowledge. Unlike the Greeks, who later dissected cadavers, Egyptians likely gained insights through embalming practices, where removing organs gave them an intimate understanding of human physiology. Their meticulous record-keeping transformed this knowledge into repeatable procedures, complete with dosage instructions and prognostic notes. A remedy for asthma, mixing herbs heated on a brick for inhalation, mirrors modern nebulizer treatments. Another prescription for poor vision, applying crushed liver to the eyes, might sound bizarre until you realize liver is packed with vitamin A, essential for retinal health. What's often overlooked is their grasp of public health. Medical scrolls differentiate between endemic and epidemic diseases, advising quarantine measures for the latter. They understood that contaminated water caused parasites, designing filtration systems using porous clay vessels. Even their cosmetics had medicinal purposes. Kohl eyeliner contained galena, which repelled bacteria-laden flies while reducing sun glare. This wasn't magic, it was early evidence-based medicine, where trial and error over centuries yielded protocols as rigorous as any modern clinical trial. Modern science keeps validating their intuition. Studies confirm honey's efficacy against antibiotic-resistant MRSA, while willow bark extracts show fewer side effects than synthetic aspirin. The irony: we're now circling back to their holistic approach, integrating natural remedies with conventional treatments. The next time you reach for pain relievers or antiseptics, remember the roots of your medicine cabinet stretch all the way back to the banks of the Nile, where physicians blended observation, innovation, and an uncanny knack for harnessing nature's pharmacy. Scattered across the river deltas and jungle clearings of Costa Rica, the stone spheres of the Diquís culture defy simple explanation. These nearly perfect orbs, some as small as a grapefruit, others towering taller than a man, were carved with such precision that modern laser scans revealed deviations of less than 2 millimeters from true spherical geometry. The largest weigh up to 16 tons, yet they balance delicately on natural stone platforms as if placed by giants. What's truly baffling isn't just their shape, but the mystery of how a pre-Columbian society without metal tools or written language achieved such mathematical perfection. The granite and gabbro stones didn't originate where they were found. Geologists trace their source to quarries over 50 miles away in the Talamanca Mountains, meaning the Diquís people transported these massive spheres through dense rainforest without wheels or pack animals. Researchers suggest they may have used log rollers and ramps, but even with these methods, moving a single 16-ton sphere would require coordinated effort from hundreds of people for weeks. The real magic, however, lies in the carving process. Without calipers or modern measuring devices, artisans likely relied on a combination of water-leveling techniques and repetitive grinding. Evidence points to a multi-stage method, first roughing out the shape with harder stones, then painstakingly polishing with sand and leather until the surface became mirror smooth. Some spheres show traces of ochre or other pigments, hinting they might have been painted, transforming them from geological curiosities into vibrant cultural objects. Debate still rages about their purpose. Early theories proposed they were astronomical markers, as some spheres align with solstice sunrises or significant star positions. Others note clusters arranged in geometric patterns resembling constellations or sacred diagrams. But here's the twist: many spheres were moved during the 20th century by plantation workers clearing land, making original arrangements difficult to reconstruct. An alternative theory suggests they symbolized celestial bodies or mythic eggs in Diquís cosmology, serving as focal points for rituals. Spanish colonial accounts mention indigenous leaders using the spheres in seating arrangements during councils, possibly as symbols of authority. What's often overlooked is the social organization required to produce them. Creating just one sphere would demand not only skilled artisans, but also a surplus economy capable of feeding laborers and a hierarchy to coordinate such projects. The Diquís left no pyramids or grand temples. These spheres might have been their equivalent, a testament to communal effort rather than individual glory. Modern laser mapping has revealed previously unnoticed carvings on some spheres, spirals, lines, and even animal shapes eroded by time, suggesting they were more than mere ornaments. The greatest enigma is why the tradition vanished. By the time Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, the spheres were already ancient, their makers long gone. Later cultures viewed them with superstition, believing they contained gold or supernatural powers, leading to vandalism and looting. Today, UNESCO protects the remaining spheres as World Heritage treasures, while scientists employ 3D modeling to study tool marks invisible to the naked eye. These silent orbs challenge our assumptions about prehistoric societies, proving that precision and ambition aren't modern inventions. They're timeless human impulses, carved in stone and waiting for us to decipher their meaning. How did Viking ships cross the North Atlantic's treacherous waters without compasses, under skies often choked with clouds for weeks at a time? The answer might lie in a small, unassuming crystal mentioned in medieval sagas, the legendary solarstein or sunstone. Far from myth, modern experiments reveal this tool as a stroke of optical genius, allowing Norse navigators to pinpoint the sun's location, even when it was completely hidden behind dense overcast. Imagine holding up a piece of calcite or cordierite crystal, rotating it until the light passing through it aligns in symmetrical patterns. That subtle shift reveals the sun's position with startling accuracy, turning an overcast day into a navigational aid rather than a dead end. The science behind this is as elegant as it is effective. Sunstones exploit a property called birefringence light, splitting into two polarized beams as it passes through certain crystals. When you rotate the stone, one beam grows brighter while the other dims, converging at equal intensity only when aligned with the sun's hidden position. Researchers from the University of Rennes proved this in 2011, using a calcite crystal to determine the sun's location within 5 degrees of accuracy, even after sunset. That's precise enough to maintain a course from Norway to Greenland, a voyage of over 1,000 miles where a single degree of error could mean missing land entirely. But here's what's truly remarkable. The Vikings likely didn't understand polarization as a scientific concept. Instead, they relied on generations of empirical observation, noticing how certain crystals behaved under specific light conditions. A master navigator might have carried multiple sunstones, testing each against the sky's diffuse glow to confirm readings. Combined with other techniques like reading wave patterns, bird flight paths, and even the color of seawater, this tool transformed the North Atlantic into a navigable highway long before magnetic compasses reached Europe. The real mystery isn't whether sunstones worked, but why we've found so few in archaeological digs. Only one candidate has been discovered, a calcite crystal aboard a 16th century English shipwreck, centuries after the Viking Age. Some historians speculate that sunstones were so valuable they were rarely buried with their owners, passed down through navigator families instead. Others suggest the crystals, being fragile, simply didn't survive centuries in Scandinavian soil. Yet the sagas leave tantalizing clues. In one account, King Olaf asks a warrior to locate the sun on a snowy day. The man peers through a mysterious stone and points unerringly to its hidden position. Modern sailors have put the sunstone to the test with dramatic results. In 2018, a team retraced a Viking route from Iceland to Newfoundland using nothing but a replica sunstone and celestial cues, proving the method's viability even under modern pollution-scattered skies. Meanwhile, aerospace engineers study polarized light navigation for drones and spacecraft, acknowledging that the Vikings' primitive tool might hold lessons for cutting-edge technology. The sunstone's legacy isn't just about wayfinding, it's a testament to human ingenuity's ability to harness nature's subtle cues, turning the invisible into a roadmap for exploration. In an age where we take GPS for granted, these ancient mariners remind us that sometimes the most advanced solutions aren't digital but mineral, held in the palm of a hand and read through the wisdom of countless voyages. High above Beijing's Forbidden City, the wooden pagodas of ancient China sway like graceful dancers when earthquakes strike, not in defiance of nature but in harmony with it. These towering structures have weathered hundreds of tremors over 6 centuries without collapsing, their secret lying not in rigid strength but in deliberate flexibility. At first glance, they appear held together by magic. No nails, no mortar, just intricate networks of interlocking wooden brackets that seem to breathe with the Earth's movements. This is dugong architecture, a seismic innovation so effective that engineers today study it for modern earthquake-resistant designs. The genius of dugong lies in its distributive physics. Each pagoda is essentially a giant 3D puzzle, with brackets and beams fitted together using precisely carved notches and joints. When tremors hit, these connections flex and shift, dissipating energy through countless tiny movements rather than resisting it head-on. Think of it like a palm tree bending in a hurricane. The more it gives, the less it breaks. The weight of the heavy tiled roofs actually stabilizes the structure, acting like a pendulum that counters lateral shaking. Even more impressively, the wood's natural elasticity allows the entire building to snap back into alignment after the quake passes, a self-correcting feature modern steel frameworks struggle to replicate. What's truly revolutionary is how ancient builders achieved this without mathematical formulas or computer models. They relied on empirical knowledge passed down through generations, observing how certain joinery techniques performed in tremors and refining them over time. The Yingxian wooden pagoda, built in 1056, stands as the ultimate testament. despite enduring 28 recorded major earthquakes, including one in 1333 that leveled stone buildings around it. This 9-story marvel still stands tall. Its secret, a sophisticated system of 54 different bracket types, each designed to handle specific stress points, all working in concert like the inner workings of a fine mechanical watch. Modern engineers have only recently decoded why these methods work so well. Laser scans reveal that dugong joints create friction damping, where the rubbing of wooden surfaces converts seismic energy into harmless heat. The slight gaps between components act as shock absorbers, a principle now echoed in base isolation systems used in skyscrapers from Tokyo to San Francisco. When China rebuilt parts of Sichuan after the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake, architects blended ancient dugong principles with steel reinforcements, creating hybrid structures that outperformed conventional designs in aftershocks. Yet for all our advanced materials, we've yet to match the sustainability of these wooden wonders. While modern concrete buildings crumble after decades, the Forbidden City's pagodas endure with minimal maintenance, their organic materials aging gracefully instead of corroding. The lesson isn't just about surviving disasters, it's about building in conversation with nature, not against it. These silent sentinels of Ming Dynasty craftsmanship challenge our obsession with unyielding strength, proving that sometimes the most resilient thing you can be is flexible. Inside a 1st century Alexandrian workshop, a bronze sphere hissed to life, spinning faster and faster as steam shot from its nozzles, not with the roar of an industrial revolution, but with the quiet sigh of an idea born too soon. This was Hero's Eolipile, a deceptively simple device that harnessed steam power 17 centuries before James Watt improved the Newcomen engine. At first glance, it seemed like little more than a curiosity, a hollow metal ball mounted on a boiler with bent tubes that made it whirl as escaping steam acted like miniature jets. But hidden within this spinning marvel was a principle that would one day drive locomotives and power plants, action and reaction, the foundational law of motion Newton would later formalize. The mechanics were startlingly elegant. Water in the boiler heated until steam rose through pipes into the sphere, then escaped through the angled nozzles, creating thrust that set the entire apparatus rotating. Replicas have reached speeds of 1,500 revolutions per minute, proving this wasn't just a party trick, it was a working prototype of steam power. Hero's own writings describe variations, including a version where the sphere's rotation could drive small machinery. Imagine if someone had connected it to a millstone or a pump. History might have unfolded differently. Yet for all its potential, the Eolipile remained a temple wonder, amusing priests and philosophers but never transforming industry. Why did this breakthrough stall? Part of the answer lies in context. Alexandria's economy relied on slave labor, reducing incentives to develop labor-saving machines. Hero's audience, wealthy patrons, valued spectacle over utility. But the deeper issue might have been conceptual. Without a theory of energy conversion or mechanical efficiency, the Eolipile's significance wasn't obvious. Think of it like discovering electricity but lacking the light bulb, a dazzling phenomenon without an obvious application. The Greeks excelled at theoretical geometry but struggled to bridge the gap between abstract principles and scalable engineering. The tragedy isn't that Hero failed to spark an industrial revolution, it's that his insights faded into obscurity. Byzantine manuscripts preserved his designs, but they became footnotes rather than blueprints. When Watt finally reinvented steam power in the 1700s, he had no idea the ancient world had beaten him to the principle. Today, as we grapple with energy transitions, the Eolipile stands as a haunting what if. What if its potential had been recognized? What if that spinning sphere had been the seed of an ancient technological leap? Some ideas don't vanish, they wait quietly for the world to catch up. Picture this, a single drop of dye so rare that it took 12,000 sea snails to produce just 1 gram of it. The vivid purple hue known as Tyrian purple wasn't just a color, it was a status symbol powerful enough to shape empires. Harvested from the mucus glands of spiny Dimurex snails, this legendary pigment turned the Phoenicians into the ancient world's color cartel, with a production process so noxious that Roman writers described the stench of dye workshops as a punishment fit for the gods. Yet the end result was mesmerizing, a deep, shimmering purple that grew more vibrant with sunlight, never fading even after centuries. The extraction process was a masterclass in early chemistry. Divers would gather live snails from Mediterranean reefs, then crack their shells to access a tiny gland near the respiratory cavity. But here's where it gets fascinating. The secretion wasn't purple at first. It emerged as a yellowish liquid that transformed through exposure to air and sunlight, undergoing a series of color changes from green to blue before settling into its final regal shade. Phoenician artisans perfected a fermentation vat technique, soaking the glands in salt water for days to intensify the color, a biochemical reaction modern science confirms involves light-sensitive dibromoindigo compounds. The vats had to be monitored constantly. Too little time produced weak lavender, while over-processing turned the dye black. This wasn't just a fashion statement, it was geopolitical leverage. By guarding their methods fiercely, even burying production waste to thwart spies, the Phoenicians maintained a monopoly that funded their maritime empire. A single purple-dyed wool cloak could cost the equivalent of a Roman soldier's yearly salary, making it the ultimate flex for elites. Julius Caesar famously reserved it for his triumphal robes, while Byzantine emperors signed decrees in purple ink to underscore divine authority. The color's exclusivity was literally enforced by law. Sumptuary edicts in Rome and Constantinople threatened death for unauthorized wearers. Yet Tyrian purple's legacy extends beyond royalty. Modern chromatographers analyzing ancient textiles discovered the dye's molecular structure acts as a natural antimicrobial, protecting fabrics from decay. The same organic compounds that repelled bacteria may have inadvertently preserved historical garments we admire today. Contemporary designers still chase its elusive tones. When Pantone selected Very Peri as its 2022 color of the year, the press release explicitly referenced Phoenician purple's enduring influence. The rise of synthetic dyes in the 1800s erased Tyrian purple's monopoly, but not its mystique. Recently, marine biologists discovered surviving murex colonies near ancient Phoenician sites still produce the same secretion, a living link to antiquity. As sustainable fashion revives interest in natural dyes, artisans are relearning these ancient techniques, proving that some innovations never truly fade. They just wait for the right moment to shine again. High in the Andes, where thin air and rugged terrain made survival a daily challenge, ancient surgeons performed what might be history's most audacious medical procedure, drilling holes into living human skulls. This practice, called trepanation, wasn't some primitive ritual. It was a sophisticated form of neurosurgery with survival rates that would impress modern doctors. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of pre-Columbian skulls bearing precise circular or rectangular openings, many showing clear signs of healing, proof that patients not only survived the operation but lived for years afterward. The tools were shockingly simple: obsidian blades, bronze toomey knives, and hand-operated drills made of copper or cactus spines. Without anesthesia, patients likely chewed coca leaves or drank fermented chicha beer to dull the pain while surgeons worked swiftly to remove sections of bone. What's astounding isn't just their bravery, but their anatomical knowledge. These healers avoided major blood vessels and sensitive brain regions, often skirting the sagittal sinus, a critical vein that, if nicked, would have caused fatal bleeding. Some skulls reveal multiple healed trepanations, suggesting repeat procedures were tolerated, even trusted. But how did they prevent infection without antibiotics or sterile environments? The answer lies in nature's pharmacy. Andean healers packed wounds with antiseptic herbs like munya, a mint relative, or applied balsam-soaked cotton, exploiting antimicrobial properties they'd observed through generations. The dry mountain air may have further reduced bacterial risks. Modern studies of these skulls show lower infection rates than Civil War-era trepanations performed in sterile hospitals, a humbling comparison. The reasons for trepanation varied. Some skull fractures show evidence of battlefield injuries where surgeons likely relieved pressure from swelling. Others hint at ritual purposes, perhaps to release evil spirits believed to cause seizures or migraines. What's undeniable is the skill involved. In the Cusco region, 1 in 5 excavated skulls display successful trepanation, with survival estimates as high as 80% during the Inca Empire's peak. That's a higher success rate than early 19th century European surgeries, where infection routinely killed half of all patients. Today, neurosurgeons study these ancient techniques with newfound respect. The Andean emphasis on minimal bone removal and avoiding brain tissue aligns with modern surgical principles. Even their recovery protocols, using gold or silver plates to cover larger openings, mirror contemporary cranial implants. These forgotten pioneers remind us that innovation isn't always about technology. Sometimes it's about the steady hands, keen observation, and deep respect for human resilience that transcends time. Their legacy lives on in the healed bone edges of centuries-old skulls, silent witnesses to a medical mastery we're only beginning to fully appreciate. Held in the dimly lit halls of the British Museum, the Lycurgus Cup seems to perform magic before your eyes. Tilt it one way under light, and it glows a rich jade green. Shift the angle, and the entire vessel transforms into a deep, blood red, a chameleonic effect that wouldn't be scientifically explained until the 1990s. Crafted by Roman artisans in the 4th century, this dichroic glass masterpiece isn't just beautiful, it's a nanotechnology puzzle wrapped in an ancient mystery. The secret lies in its composition, microscopic particles of gold and silver, ground so fine they're measured in nanometers, about 1,000 times smaller than a grain of pollen, suspended throughout the glass matrix. What's staggering isn't just the presence of these nanoparticles, but the precision behind their distribution. Modern analysis reveals the gold particles measure approximately 70 nanometers in diameter, while the silver particles cluster around 50, dimensions critical to creating the color-shifting effect. When light hits the cup, electrons in these metal particles vibrate at specific frequencies, scattering certain wavelengths while absorbing others. Green dominates in reflected light, while transmitted light passing through the glass emerges red. This phenomenon, called plasmon resonance, is the same principle behind modern medical diagnostics and even some solar panel coatings. Yet the Romans achieved it without electron microscopes or spectrometers, relying instead on an empirical recipe lost to time. The cup's craftsmanship raises even thornier questions. To create such uniform nanoparticles, artisans likely added powdered gold and silver to molten glass, then reheated and cooled it in precise cycles, a technique akin to modern tempering. Some researchers speculate they used plant extracts or urine as reducing agents to control particle size, methods later employed by medieval alchemists. But here's the real kicker: the cup isn't unique. Fragments of similar dichroic glass have been found across the Roman Empire, suggesting this was a documented, if elite, tradition. The Lycurgus Cup's survival gives us a rare intact specimen to study, but it hints at a broader technological ecosystem we've only glimpsed. Equally fascinating is the cup's subject matter. It depicts the mythical king Lycurgus ensnared in vines, a scene from Greek lore where the god Dionysus punishes the ruler for opposing his cult. Some scholars believe the color shift wasn't just decorative but symbolic, green representing Lycurgus's earthly power, red evoking the wine-fueled divine retribution that destroys him. This fusion of art and advanced material science speaks to a culture where technology served storytelling as much as function. The tragedy, of course, is how this knowledge vanished. As Rome's glass-making hubs declined, the painstaking techniques required for nanoparticle control faded. Medieval stained glass, while beautiful, never replicated the effect. Modern scientists only rediscovered plasmonic materials in the 1950s, and even now, replicating the cup's exact properties remains challenging. Laboratories can create dichroic glass, but the Roman method, likely honed through generations of trial and error, eludes perfect reproduction. Today, the cup's legacy ripples through unexpected fields. Biomedical engineers study its light-scattering properties for early cancer detection, while materials scientists mimic its nanostructures to develop smart windows that adjust transparency. The Lycurgus Cup isn't just a relic. It's a 2,000-year-old lesson in how artistry and cutting-edge science can intertwine, proof that the ancient world's innovations sometimes glow brightest when viewed from the future. While the Antikythera Mechanism rightfully stuns us with its complexity, it wasn't the only advanced computing device whispering through ancient Greek texts. Lurking in the fragmented writings of Cicero and Claudian are references to another marvel, the Sphere of Archimedes, a celestial model so precise it reportedly displayed the movements of the Sun, Moon, and 5 known planets in real time. Unlike static armillary spheres, this device allegedly replicated celestial irregularities like retrograde motion, an engineering feat requiring gears within gears, much like the Antikythera's differential mechanism. But here's what chills the spine. Archimedes crafted his sphere 3 centuries before the Antikythera's creation. Was this the prototype for an entire lineage of lost machines? The descriptions that survive paint a tantalizing picture. Cicero claimed the sphere demonstrated solar eclipses with lunar shadows crossing its surface, while later poets marveled at how its bronze constellations rotated with divine rhythm. If accurate, this wasn't just a planetarium, it was a dynamic orrery powered by an intricate clockwork system. Recent reconstructions based on these accounts suggest it may have used a complex system of nested tubes, each rotating at different speeds to simulate planetary orbits. The real bombshell: multiple ancient sources mention similar devices in royal courts and temples across the Mediterranean, hinting at a broader tradition of mechanical astronomy that history has largely erased. What makes these references so electrifying is the technical consistency between them. A 2nd century poem by Claudian describes a portable version gifted to Emperor Honorius, small enough to hold in one hand yet displaying the harmony of the heavens. This parallels recent archaeological finds like the tiny bronze gear fragments unearthed near Epirus, too small for any practical mechanism except perhaps a handheld calculator. Even more compelling are the accounts from Byzantium, where Emperor Constantine Roman VII reportedly inherited a celestial globe that predicted eclipses. The sheer volume of these references, spanning nearly a millennium, suggests these weren't one-off curiosities but part of a sophisticated technological lineage. The mystery deepens when we consider the materials. Greek and Roman texts mention specialized workshops producing toothed brass wheels for philosophical instruments. while papyrus fragments from Alexandria list tools like miniature lathes and gauges for cutting precise gear teeth. One inventory even mentions a star mapping engine commissioned for the Library of Pergamum. This wasn't backyard tinkering, it was an established craft with standardized parts, possibly even early mass production. The recent discovery of a Roman-era gear blank in Cyprus, its teeth partially carved but never finished, offers physical proof that the Antikythera mechanism wasn't alone. It was simply the one that survived. Why did such brilliance vanish? The collapse of Alexandria's intellectual hubs certainly played a role, but the answer may also lie in how these devices were perceived. Unlike water clocks or sundials, which served practical daily functions, analog computers were likely reserved for elite scholars and rulers, their knowledge too specialized to survive political upheavals. As Christianity spread, complex mechanisms modeling pagan heavens might have been actively suppressed. A 6th century edict from Constantinople orders the destruction of astronomical engines in Antioch, accusing them of calculating God's intentions. By the time Islamic scholars rediscovered Greek mechanics in the 9th century, only written fragments remained, leaving later generations to rebuild this legacy from scratch. Today, as archaeologists comb Mediterranean shipwrecks with new imaging tools, every recovered gear fragment sparks hope. The Antikythera mechanism was found by sheer accident. Who's to say another ancient computer doesn't lie buried beneath seabed silt or some forgotten monastery's cellar? These lost machines whisper a provocative truth. Our ancestors' technological landscape may have been far richer than the fragmentary evidence suggests. Each new discovery doesn't just rewrite history, it challenges our assumptions about where innovation begins and how easily brilliance can slip through time's fingers. Beneath the scorching sun of India's arid landscapes, a hidden world of cool, shadowed corridors and mirror-like pools unfolds the ancient stepwells, where necessity and artistry merge in a dance of stone and water. Take Chand Bayori, one of the deepest in Rajasthan, where 3,500 perfectly symmetrical steps descend 13 stories into the earth, forming a geometric masterpiece that resembles an inverted pyramid. But these weren't just grand staircases, they were feats of hydroengineering designed to solve a brutal problem: how to access dwindling groundwater during relentless droughts while creating communal spaces that thrived even in the harshest summers. The engineering behind these structures reveals a profound understanding of water tables and seasonal shifts. Builders excavated until they hit impermeable clay layers, creating reservoirs that could hold water year-round. The steps themselves served a dual purpose. They allowed access to water at varying levels as it receded, while their zigzag patterns minimized erosion from monsoon rains. But the real genius lay in the stepwell's passive cooling systems. As sunlight filtered down the step tiers, evaporation from the water's surface created a natural air conditioning effect. Temperatures at the base could be up to 15 degrees cooler than the surface. Some stepwells, like Gujarat's Rani Kai Vav, even integrated channels to direct breeze over the water, amplifying the cooling effect through ancient evaporative physics. Yet stepwells were never purely utilitarian. Every surface became a canvas, pillars carved with deities, niches holding sculptures of dancers, and walls etched with intricate jolly screens that cast ever-changing shadows. Adalaj Vav, built in 1499, tells a love story in stone, a Muslim ruler's tribute to his Hindu queen, with motifs blending both traditions. This fusion of function and beauty wasn't accidental. It reflected a worldview where water was sacred, and its custodianship demanded reverence. Even the acoustics were deliberate. The geometry of the steps amplified chanting during rituals, turning the wells into subterranean concert halls. What's often overlooked is their social role. Stepwells functioned as bustling community hubs where women gathered to draw water, travelers rested in shaded alcoves, and festivals pulsed with music. The steps' design ensured equitable access. Wider landings at intervals allowed queues to form without congestion, while separate staircases prevented clashes between those ascending and descending. In a sense, they were ancient prototypes of public infrastructure, blending utility with equity and artistry. Modern hydrologists are now rediscovering their brilliance. Studies show that stepwells recharged aquifers more effectively than modern borewells by allowing rainwater to percolate gradually through their porous walls. Architects praise their zero-energy cooling techniques, relevant in an era of climate crises, yet most lie forgotten, silted over or used as trash pits, casualties of colonial-era piped water systems that prioritized convenience over sustainability. The silent steps of Chand Baori whisper a challenge. What if we'd kept building with this wisdom? In a world facing water scarcity and urban heat islands, these ancient marvels aren't relics, they're blueprints. They prove that the most enduring innovations don't just solve problems, they elevate the human spirit, turning survival into poetry carved in stone. Walk into the ruins of a Roman bathhouse, and you'll feel the ghost of an engineering marvel beneath your feet. The hypocaust, a heating system so effective that stepping on its warmed floors in winter would have felt like walking on sunlight. This wasn't just a luxury, it was a thermal revolution, a network of hollow spaces and clay pipes that transformed cold stone into radiant heat panels 2,000 years before modern underfloor heating. The principle was simple yet brilliant. Slaves or servants stoked wood-fired furnaces in basement chambers, sending hot air through gaps beneath raised floors, while flues embedded in walls drew the warmth upward, creating a convection current that heated entire buildings. But the execution, that was pure genius. The sophistication lay in the details. Builders elevated floors on stacks of pilly, short, heat-resistant brick pillars spaced precisely to distribute weight and warmth evenly. Tile ducts lining the walls acted as thermal chimneys, ensuring no heat escaped unused. In elite villas like those in Pompeii, Thermopolia, ancient snack bars, even used hypocausts to keep food warm, proving the system's versatility. What's astonishing isn't just the technology, it's the scale. The baths of Caracalla in Rome could heat over 2,000 bathers simultaneously, its hypocaust spanning acres beneath mosaic floors. Modern thermal imaging shows how evenly the heat spread, with temperature differentials of less than 5 degrees across vast rooms, a feat modern systems struggle to match without thermostats. But here's the real kicker: the Romans understood heat retention. They lined hypocaust channels with terracotta, a material that absorbed and slowly released warmth, reducing fuel consumption. Some villas in Britannia, where winters were harsh, doubled down by insulating walls with hollow bricks filled with volcanic pumice, an ancient version of double glazing. The system was so efficient that Seneca complained about wealthy Romans overheating their homes to tropical levels, a stark contrast to medieval castles where nobles huddled near fireplaces in fur cloaks. The tragedy: this knowledge didn't disappear overnight. Byzantine emperors maintained hypocausts in Constantinople's palaces, and fragments of the technology survived in Islamic hammams and Korean ondol systems. Yet Europe largely forgot it, reverting to smoky hearths for over a millennium. The reason wasn't technical regression but economic collapse. Hypocausts required armies of laborers to maintain furnaces and clean soot-clogged ducts, a cost only empires could bear. Today, as we rediscover radiant heating's energy efficiency, the hypocaust's legacy is undeniable. modern underfloor systems use plastic pipes instead of clay, and electric pumps replace slave labor, but the physics remain unchanged. The next time you enjoy a warm floor on a winter morning, remember, you're walking in the footsteps of Roman engineers who turned comfort into an art form, proving that sometimes the oldest ideas are the ones that never grow cold. Picture a polished bronze plate, its surface etched with celestial symbols, and resting atop it, a spoon carved from magnetic lodestone, its handle perpetually pointing south. This was the Sinan, the world's first compass, but not as we know it. Crafted during China's Han Dynasty around 200 BCE, its purpose wasn't navigation at all, but divination, a tool for harmonizing buildings with cosmic energies or aligning tombs to the cardinal directions for spiritual balance. Yet within this unassuming spoon lay the seed of a revolution that would one day stitch the continents together. The genius of the Sinan lay in its simplicity. The lodestone spoon, shaped like the Big Dipper constellation revered in Chinese cosmology, could rotate freely on its polished bronze plate. Artisans likely noticed that certain iron-rich stones, when suspended, always aligned along a north-south axis, an observation they attributed to the influence of celestial forces. By the time of the Tang dynasty, around the 8th century, this mystical tool had undergone a practical transformation. Magnetic needles, magnetized by rubbing them with lodestones, were floated in bowls of water or suspended from silk threads, creating portable direction finders. The leap from ritual object to navigational aid wasn't just technological, it was a shift in worldview, from seeking harmony with the heavens to mastering the earth itself. What made the compass revolutionary wasn't just the tool, but how it changed humanity's relationship with the unknown. Before its adoption, sailors relied on celestial navigation, following stars like Polaris, or tracking the sun's arc, a method useless under cloud cover or during monsoons. The compass liberated explorers from fair weather limits. Chinese Admiral Zhang, his 15th century treasure fleets, with their colossal ships and thousands of crewmen, depended on compasses to navigate the Indian Ocean's unpredictable waters, reaching as far as Africa decades before European explorers rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Arab and Persian traders quickly adopted the technology, calling it the fish that points the way, while Viking sunstones and Polynesian star paths suddenly seemed archaic by comparison. Yet the compass's impact extended far beyond maritime trade. It enabled the precise mapping of land routes, transforming the Silk Road from a series of loosely connected trails into a measurable corridor. Military strategists used compass bearings to coordinate troop movements across featureless deserts, while farmers aligned irrigation channels with newfound precision. The very concept of direction shifted from a vague abstraction toward the mountains or downriver to a mathematical constant, paving the way for cartography's golden age. The irony, for all its global influence, the compass retained traces of its mystical origins. Medieval European compasses often featured fleur-de-lis markers, symbolizing divine guidance, while Chinese navigators still performed rituals to honor the south-pointing needle's celestial patrons. Even today, as GPS satellites orbit overhead, the compass endures not just as a backup tool, but as a symbol of humanity's restless drive to explore. That humble lodestone spoon didn't just point south, it pointed the way to the modern world, proving that sometimes the tools that change history aren't those invented for practicality, but those repurposed through curiosity and need. Deep within the shadowy crypts of the Dendera Temple, a series of enigmatic carvings flicker with controversy, stone reliefs that some claim depict nothing less than ancient electric lamps. The most famous of these shows a bulbous object resembling a modern light bulb, its filament snaking like a twisted lotus stem, encased in what appears to be a transparent tube supported by a pillar-like base. To proponents of alternative history, this is smoking gun evidence that the Egyptians harnessed electricity, illuminating their tombs and temples with artificial light long before Edison's breakthrough. But are we seeing a lost technology or a symbolic representation misunderstood across millennia? Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss the light bulb interpretation, arguing the imagery aligns with well-documented religious motifs. The so-called bulb, they say, is actually a jed pillar, a symbol of stability intertwined with a snake representing the sun god Ra's nightly journey through the underworld. The filament mirrors the form of a lotus flower, a sacred emblem of rebirth, while the entire scene likely illustrates a mythological event, not a technical diagram. Supporting this view, no physical remnants of electrical devices, wires, batteries, or insulators have ever been found in Egyptian excavations. The absence of soot in certain underground chambers, often cited as proof of electric lighting, could instead reflect clever mirror systems channeling sunlight through shafts, a technique demonstrated in modern reconstructions. Yet the theory persists, fueled by tantalizing anomalies. The Baghdad Battery, a clay jar with copper and iron components found in Mesopotamia, hints that ancient cultures might have experimented with basic electrochemistry. If the Egyptians had access to similar technology, could they have adapted it for illumination? Some researchers point to the temple's peculiar architecture, narrow shafts and reflective surfaces that could have amplified even faint light sources, making primitive bulbs practical. Then there's the eerie precision of underground artwork in tombs like the Valley of the Kings. How did artists paint in pitch darkness without leaving traces of torch marks or oil lamps? The debate reveals less about ancient Egypt and more about our own biases. We often underestimate pre-modern ingenuity, assuming advanced tech must look like our own. Yet the Egyptians achieved marvels with tools we barely comprehend: precision drilling granite with copper saws, aligning pyramids to celestial patterns with uncanny accuracy. Whether or not they had light bulbs, their real electricity was the spark of creativity, solving problems in ways that still mystify us. The Dendera carvings may not depict technology as we know it, but they remind us that history's brightest ideas often shine through the cracks of conventional understanding. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere between myth and science. If these carvings aren't literal blueprints, could they encode forgotten principles of energy or optics? The temple's priests were keepers of esoteric knowledge, blending astronomy, medicine, and metaphysics. In a world where magic and technology intertwined, maybe the light bulb was both symbol and prototype, a sacred concept awaiting rediscovery. After all, the line between a priest's incantation and an engineer's schematic might be thinner than we think. The Dendera mystery challenges us to keep questioning, because sometimes the past's most illuminating secrets are those still hidden in plain sight. From the celestial precision of the Antikythera Mechanism to the self-healing chemistry of Roman concrete, these 35 innovations shatter the myth that ancient civilizations were primitive. They weren't just ahead of their time, they redefined what was possible, leaving behind marvels that still stump modern engineers and scientists. Take the Damascus Steel blades with their nanostructured carbon, or the Baghdad Battery's whisper of ancient electrochemistry. Each discovery forces us to rewrite the story of human ingenuity. These weren't flukes, they were the products of observation, experimentation, and knowledge passed down through generations, only to vanish into history's shadows. What's most humbling isn't just the sophistication of these inventions, but the gaps they reveal in our understanding. The Great Pyramid's alignment to true north with near-perfect accuracy, The Nasca Lines, sprawling geoglyphs visible only from the sky, the Polynesians' ability to navigate thousands of ocean miles without instruments. Each achievement suggests a depth of knowledge we've barely scratched. Even the simplest innovations, like the Indus Valley sanitation systems or the Minoan plumbing networks, reveal a grasp of urban planning that rivals modern standards. These weren't civilizations stumbling in the dark. They were problem solvers whose solutions still resonate today. Yet for every mystery solved, a dozen more linger. Why did Greek fire's formula disappear? How did the Olmecs transport 40-ton stone heads through swamps without wheels? What other technologies were lost when libraries burned or empires fell? The unsettling truth is that progress isn't a straight line, it's a spiral, where ideas surface, vanish, and re-emerge centuries later. The Antikythera Mechanism's gears weren't matched until the Renaissance, while Roman concrete's self-repairing properties are only now being reverse-engineered. These gaps remind us that history isn't just a record of what survived, but a puzzle missing countless pieces. The real lesson here isn't about nostalgia for the past, it's about curiosity for the future. As we uncover these ancient breakthroughs, they're not just museum exhibits, they're sparks for new innovation. Modern engineers study Incan earthquake-resistant masonry for building designs, while surgeons analyze pre-Columbian trepanation techniques for minimally invasive procedures. Even the humble Kanat system, with its sustainable water management, offers solutions for today's drought-stricken regions. The past isn't dead. It's a workshop where forgotten ideas wait to be repurposed. So which of these marvels leaves you awestruck? Is it the eerie accuracy of Zhang Heng's seismoscope, predicting earthquakes from hundreds of miles away? Or perhaps the Lycurgus Cup's nanotechnology, shifting colors like something from a science fiction tale? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're endlessly fascinated by these conversations. And if you're hungry for more deep dives into history's hidden genius, hit that subscribe button. The ancient world's secrets aren't done with us yet. Who knows what other wonders lie buried, just waiting for the right explorer to shine a light? After all, the greatest discoveries often begin with a simple question: how did they do